Hey everybody, I'm going to do a basic tutorial over the Relative Strength Index, the RSI, which is one of the indicators you can use to predict trends on stocks or Bitcoin or crypto in general. Understanding basic concepts will help you predict to place your buys better and kind of understand the trend rather than just looking at price action. So currently we're looking at the monthly chart, right? It shows an M here, the 1 month. You can look at different time frames. You have the monthly, the 2 week, the 1 week, the 3 day. If you don't see the 3 day here, you need to get the paid for version on TradingView. This is TradingView, what I use. I like it the best. Been using it for almost 10 years. So that's how you get the 3 day on there. First, I want to start on the month and take a big picture perspective of what's happened in past cycles. History does rhyme, it doesn't repeat itself 100%, but you can always use it as a metric. So currently, we're on the monthly. Let's throw up the indicator, the RSI. So find the Relative Strength Index right here, which is under my favorites. Now you just see a bunch of squiggly lines here. So let's take the top of every cycle. So this is Bitcoin. Every one of these candles is 1 month. So let's take the top of every cycle. We're going to draw a line there and see if there's some resemblance to the RSI to the top of BTC. Technically this had a double top. BTC here. All right, so what is common in all of the RSI? So you have, it's green, right? So when it's green, you have a major top. Green, major top. Green, major top. There's a little bit of variance here, right? You have divergence, which is something that I teach in the Patreon. I teach how to pair indicators as well as I tell you what crypto I'm buying currently and what the plan is. So I pair everything together and I teach that as well in there. But if you just looked at this, at least for the last 3-4 cycles, when it's green, you're in a zone where you need to be selling. Okay, how do you predict the bottom? Okay, well, this cycle, you were at 46. If you look over to the right, it gives you a number, right? 46, the bottom was in. So the next cycle should be somewhere around there. We were at 45. The next cycle should be somewhere around there. You're at 41. So the next cycle should be around there. And we're currently at 43. So if this trend continues, you should see a new low on BTC, probably coming in around 38 or so. Okay, so based on this trend, we have not bottomed yet on Bitcoin. I actually give prices where I think we're going to end up on BTC before we have our next 4-year cycle in the Patreon. Link is in the top of the channel. Okay, so that's pretty much a decent way how to predict the top of a cycle and the bottom of a cycle, as long as you have prior cycles to look from. Okay, this is just a big picture perspective. There's not really trends you can follow all that much on this. This is pretty much all I use the monthly RSI for. Okay, then I look at smaller time frames, like a 2 week, for example, and I try to predict when we're going to bottom from here. Now, how can we do that? So you know that this bottom was over here, so this bottom should be at least the same or lower. This bottom here was about the same as over here, and then this bottom was a little bit lower, and this one is about the same right here. Now, based on this trend, you could have bottomed here, and that's why you look at other indicators as well, and you pair things. But you can also look at trend lines. So trend lines on the stochastic RSI is pretty helpful. So if you look at the past cycle, you have a trend line right here. So you'd want to find 2 or 3 touches. So it touched here, and then once it broke out, it told you that the bottom was very, very close to being in. Now you would have had to ride it down a little bit, but you did break out here, and that was telling you that we were close. Now if we look at the next trend line, you can't really draw one on 2 week here, but you can draw one from this point to this point. Once you broke out of this trend line, you would have bought at about $8,000, and from that price of $8,000, the price went up about 650%. Now, do we have another trend line for the next cycle? Yes, you have about 3 touches here. When did we break out of this trend line? The exact bottom of BTC. So you would have bought here at 15,000, and the price would have went up about 655%. Okay, so that's how you would look at lower time frames. You could use trend lines. Now let's look at a weekly. You have more fake outs whenever it comes to a weekly, but now the trend lines look a little bit skewed, right? They don't work quite as well. So you'd have to get rid of these trend lines, and you'd look at new trend lines. And you'd see if there's anything that matches here on a weekly. Kind of the same thing here. You had a breakout up here. The bottom wasn't really in yet, but it was close. Okay, you can't do that on this one, but you probably can right here, but you would have missed a huge move. Okay, so it's not that reliable on a weekly on this cycle. Okay, what about this next cycle? Yeah, that would have predicted the pretty close to the exact bottom as well. Okay, now what about this new cycle? We have a long ways to go before we break that trend line. Okay, and this might not be the best cycle to use this on because you're not getting a very large, a sharp pinch here. The degree of this trend line is too high, so you would want to use maybe a different time frame or a different indicator. This cycle, it's probably not super helpful to use it on the weekly. Okay, now let's look at the 3-day. Similar situation here. You've got that trend line way up here, so you're getting close to approach it, but it's still a little bit too horizontal for me. So I might look at the MACD instead, and I would rely on that a little bit more. I have another video for the MACD as well that'll be posted here shortly if it's not already up. But you can look at the stochastic RSI in that way. There is another thing that you can look at on the stochastic RSI to kind of predict the bottom. And let's look at we'll do it on a 3-day. Okay, whenever the RSI reaches in this, let's pull this up. When it reaches in this dark area, let's look at a weekly. So under this 30 line, we're going to draw a few circles here. Boom, 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 and then boom. Okay, so what happened on a weekly every time we entered that area? So that dark area marked the exact bottom on BTC, even though it had another bottom, right? You have divergence, and I explained divergence, bullish and bearish divergence in my Patreon. And then this one was the exact bottom here as well. This one here was almost the exact bottom. Again, you had divergence. And then what about this one here? Is that the exact bottom, or are you going to have some divergence? Now, that's something that is a little bit more complicated for this video, and I might do a divergence video later, but that is one way that you can use the RSI. This works on any type of stock, crypto in general. However, altcoins rely a lot on ETH and BTC and the health of that chart before they start trending to the upside. There's more to it whenever it comes to crypto, but stocks in general, you can look at this, and this is pretty helpful. Now, you can also do it as sell times to sell. Now, if you would have just bought on this circular level and then you sold whenever we're up here, even whenever we just barely touched it, you would have made 400%. If you would have hung on for a while, then you could have made up to 1,500%. So normally the bottom happens here in the oversold territory, and then the top happens up here in the overbought territory. It's not 100%, but it's something to pay attention to. And if you just went by that rule, you'd make some money in the market, most likely. Okay, there's times where it appears up here a whole bunch of times, and that's where you pair it with other indicators, Elliott wave, different theories. You have the Wyckoff accumulation range that you can pay attention to, Elliott wave, which is 5 cycles up and down every cycle. And then we have the Fibonacci too, but not to complicate this video too much, that's just basically, this is pretty basic information that would help anybody that doesn't know anything about trading. So I hope you enjoyed it. Come join the Patreon if you want to learn more, if you're tired of losing your money, tired of not understanding what's going on. And I'm always glad to help. I do 2 videos a week, and then I answer any questions that you have when it pertains to crypto investing, and I tell you what I'm buying, what I'm selling, and where I expect price to go.